Why did Steve Jobs choose Tim Cook as his successor? How did Cook manage the challenges and complete the transition after taking over? And how did Cook step out of Jobs' shadow and lead Apple to greater heights? Today, I will introduce the biography of Tim Cook, the current CEO of Apple, detailing his journey as Steve Jobs' successor, how he managed the transition under immense pressure and led Apple to new heights, infusing the company with new values. Before we get started, please click on the subscribe button below to stay updated and support Daily Book Dive. Succeeding Steve Jobs was no easy task for Cook. Why? Primarily because Jobs was incredibly formidable. As the founder and soul of Apple, Jobs was both a creative genius and a business legend. His revolutionary products profoundly changed communication, entertainment, and lifestyle, leaving a lasting personal imprint on Apple. Although he passed away in 2011, almost 8 years ago, to this day, when you pick up an iPhone or talk about Apple, Jobs comes to mind. This is likely because Jobs' personal charisma and leadership aura were exceptionally strong, while Cook is a private person who prefers to work discreetly. When he took over, there was a public outcry, as people were unfamiliar with him and doubtful of his ability to follow in Jobs' footsteps, fearing Apple might decline as a result. However, a few years later, it became clear that Cook not only withstood the pressure but rose to the occasion, leading Apple to new heights. When he took over, Apple's market value was $300 billion. By August 2018, it had surpassed $1 trillion, becoming the first company in history to cross this threshold. More importantly, he emerged from Jobs' shadow, showcasing his personal style and injecting new values into Apple. Many in the business world believe Cook might actually be a better CEO than Jobs. So, how did Cook achieve all this? How are his achievements related to his personal experiences and traits? This is the focus of the book. It helps you understand Cook better, comprehend Apple and Jobs more deeply, and inspire you to think about corporate succession challenges. The book's author, Leander Connie, is a seasoned American media professional who has been covering and researching Apple for over 20 years. Now, I will take you through the essence of this book in 3 parts. First, why did Jobs choose Cook as his successor? Second, how did Cook manage the challenges and transition after taking over? Third, how did Cook step out of Jobs' shadow and lead Apple to greater heights? Part 1. Let's start with the story of how Cook was chosen by Jobs as his successor. In August 2011, after battling cancer for years, Jobs invited Cook to his home, hoping he would take over as Apple's CEO. By then, Cook had been with Apple for over a decade, serving as chief operating officer and was considered Jobs' right-hand man. However, Cook thought Jobs just wanted him to temporarily fill in, expecting Jobs to return once he recovered. Why did he think so? Because he knew Jobs was notoriously controlling and would never easily relinquish control of Apple. However, this time was different. Jobs boldly delegated power to Cook, and his health rapidly deteriorated, leading to his death a few months later. Cook became the de facto leader of Apple. At that time, many found Cook's succession puzzling. Although Cook held a high position and had managed many tasks, people inside and outside the company felt he lacked creativity, vision, and leadership charisma. Moreover, Cook had long been responsible for the complex and mundane supply chain and operations management at Apple, staying behind the scenes and never appearing in any product videos, with no public recognition. He also lacked the assertive and decisive aura. His style was very different from Jobs. Ever since Jobs' cancer diagnosis became public, there had been speculation about Apple's successor. The top candidates did not include Cook. One was chief designer Johnny Ive, who had long collaborated with Jobs and developed many iconic products. Another was Vice President Scott Forstall, who had a strong personality and resonated with Jobs' aura. Regarding Cook, a Silicon Valley investor bluntly said he couldn't lead Apple, as the company needed a brilliant product designer, not someone who just followed the rules. This was a common opinion. So, what made Jobs choose Cook, despite the widespread skepticism? The author believes Jobs' choice was not a whim but a well-thought-out decision. For him, Cook, although not as charismatic or aligned with his aura, was the best candidate to lead Apple forward. Why did Jobs think so? Let's look at Cook's early experiences, especially his performance after joining Apple. Cook was born in a small town in Alabama, USA. He excelled academically and was well-liked. However, unlike Jobs, who was a Silicon Valley hero in his youth, Cook's life seemed more routine. After high school, Cook attended Auburn University nearby, majoring in industrial engineering, focusing on optimizing complex industrial production systems, reducing costs, and maximizing resources. This matched Cook's knack for pinpointing problems and significantly influenced his career. After graduating, Cook found a job at computer giant IBM, managing the supply chain at a factory to ensure parts were sufficiently supplied without excessive inventory costs. He excelled, quickly standing out, and was listed as a potential talent by IBM. He worked at IBM for over a decade, rising to director of North American manufacturing and logistics in the PC division. Cook then changed jobs twice, including another computer giant, Compaq, but always focused on supply chain management. By early 1998, when Apple approached him, he was a renowned supply chain management expert. What was Apple's situation in early 1998? It was very poor, on the verge of bankruptcy, with low morale. You might wonder, didn't Jobs return to Apple in 1996? Why was Apple still in a slump in 1998? Jobs' return brought hope, but couldn't revive Apple overnight. He spent a long time diagnosing Apple's decline. What did he find? He saw that the company had too many and chaotic business lines, low operational efficiency, and particularly chaotic supply chain management. For example, in 1993, overestimating demand for a product led to massive inventory losses, and 2 years later, underestimating demand for another product caused supply shortages and a stock price drop, leading to the CEO's resignation. To address these issues, Jobs implemented drastic reforms. He cut unprofitable product lines, streamlined the product lineup, and began rebuilding Apple's supply chain to improve operational efficiency. However, he knew supply chain and operations management required expertise he didn't have, so he looked to the market, and Cook was the best candidate he found. After joining Apple, Cook became Senior Vice President of Worldwide Operations, tasked with overhauling Apple's manufacturing and distribution. How did he perform? Impressively. In a short time, Cook made thorough reforms by focusing intensely on details. Apple's suppliers were numerous and varied. Cook reduced the number of suppliers, simplifying communication and cooperation, and persuaded them to move their factories near Apple's to further improve delivery efficiency. Apple had long relied on its own factories, but Cook shifted to an outsourcing strategy, outsourcing production to partners whenever possible. This fundamentally solved Apple's long-standing inventory issues. If an outsourced factory was professional enough and efficient, Apple could adjust production according to demand changes without stockpiling inventory. Accurate sales and order data allowed more precise inventory management. Cook invested in software systems to connect suppliers, contractors, and retailers, using extensive data to track sales demand and issue precise instructions to the production end. Cook's deep understanding of the supply chain led to decisive actions during critical periods. For instance, to support the launch of a significant product during the holiday season, he pre-booked $100 million worth of air freight capacity months in advance, successfully managing the logistics pressure from high customer orders while preventing competitors' products from timely delivery. Cook's most significant move was establishing a strategic partnership with Foxconn, making it Apple's most important contractor. Cook saw Foxconn's vast scale and strict management, capable of producing millions of phones daily, as fitting Apple's needs for low inventory and high production flexibility during demand surges. You might think Foxconn's main advantage was cheap labor in China. However, Cook valued Foxconn's production flexibility ensured by its large workforce, which was crucial for Apple. For example, before the 2007 iPhone launch, Jobs noticed the original plastic screen scratched easily and decided to switch to glass weeks before the launch, a logistical nightmare for the production team. Cook coordinated with Foxconn to work overtime, completing the switch before the launch. Cook's approaches, including supplier consolidation, outsourcing, and end-to-end information sharing, are now standard practices but were cutting edge at the time. Even Jobs had vacillated between in-house manufacturing and outsourcing, ultimately persuaded by Cook. Cook's efforts led an industry revolution in production processes. More importantly, Cook's methods had immediate effects on Apple. He reduced product inventory cycles from 30 to 6 days within 7 months, matching Dell's efficiency and significantly lowering operational costs, crucial for Apple in its low period. Later, as Jobs led Apple out of its slump, Cook's contributions, though behind the scenes, were substantial. According to the book, Jobs and chief designer, Jonathan Ive, created great products, while Cook and his team mass-produced and distributed them worldwide. With Cook's efforts, by 1999, Apple's stock price hit a new high, regaining momentum. Cook's rising position and recognition from Jobs led to his elevation to chief operating officer, overseeing 40,000 of Apple's 50,000 employees. Jobs intentionally gave Cook responsibility across different areas, from supply chain and operations to sales and hardware, unique treatment within Apple. Jobs also repeatedly made him interim CEO, showing his intention to groom Cook as his successor. Thus, when Cook took over, although the public was shocked, Apple insiders knew it was the natural outcome. Therefore, Jobs' choice of Cook as his successor was no accident. Cook's expertise in supply chain management helped rebuild Apple's production and operations, significantly aiding Jobs in Apple's revival, earning Jobs' appreciation and intentional grooming. Jobs recognized that although Cook wasn't a charismatic public leader, his skills were perfect for leading Apple, now a large company, towards stable development. Part 2. After taking over, how did Cook perform? Let's move to the second part, examining how Cook managed challenges and completed the transition. A company's succession period is always a time for potential problems. Moreover, Cook succeeded under immense public pressure and skepticism, following a legend like Jobs. Upon taking over, he faced multiple setbacks. In March 2012, Cook hosted the iPad 3 launch, his first product launch post-Jobs. How did he perform? Unnaturally, with a furrowed brow and no excitement. He starkly contrasted with Jobs' passionate and charismatic style, increasing people's doubts. The product also seemed lackluster to Apple fans, with mediocre sales. Cook's start was rough. It didn't end there. Mid-year, Apple's financial report showed iPhone sales below expectations, a rare occurrence in the past decade. The market worried that rising Android phones from companies like Samsung threatened iPhone's lead, causing Apple's stock to drop. Simultaneously, Apple faced internal unrest. Cook's first high-profile hire, Senior Vice President of Retail John Browett, was fired after only 6 months. What did Browett do wrong? Cook discovered Browett focused excessively on cutting staff, reducing costs, and increasing profits, neglecting the deeper role of Apple stores in conveying culture and values. Firing him was a corrective move, but it also made the public perceive Cook's management as disorganized and his judgment poor. For the newly appointed Cook, this situation was dire. How did he handle the crisis? Let's see Cook's approach. First, he stabilized the internal situation. Since firing Browett had started internal adjustments, he continued the changes and enhanced departmental cooperation. The next target was a senior vice president, Scott Forstall. Forstall was a bigger name, long working with Jobs, deeply trusted, and even called mini-Jobs by the media. He was also a more popular successor candidate than Cook. How did Cook remove Forstall? At that time, Forstall's major projects, Siri and Apple Maps, had significant issues. Particularly, Apple Maps had errors like directing users to runways, causing strong dissatisfaction among Apple fans and the public. Cook felt Forstall failed to take responsibility and disrupted the team, leading to his decisive firing. Some believed Cook was purging rivals, seeing Forstall's refusal to publicly apologize for the project failures as the real reason for his dismissal. Nonetheless, Cook's move gained support from the senior management and even cheers from employees who disliked Forstall's aggressive style and power plays. This move showcased Cook's leadership and united the team. Cook's internal adjustments boosted his authority within the company. However, that alone wasn't enough. More importantly, he had to reshape Apple's market image and instill confidence in a post-Jobs Apple. How did he do it? By playing to his strengths and avoiding weaknesses. How did Cook leverage his strengths and avoid weaknesses? Public appearances weren't his forte, so he didn't focus on that or try to mimic Jobs. He continued his strengths in supply chain management and company operations. As for products, Jobs' legacy and Johnny Ive's design team were enough to create a standout product, combined with strong production, sales, and distribution coordination to revive Apple's market image. Indeed, in September 2012, Apple launched the iPhone 5, the first phone post-Jobs, achieving huge success with 2 million orders within 24 hours, double the previous model's orders. This success quieted market concerns and skepticism about Cook and Apple. Cook didn't stop there. He found another area where he could outperform Jobs: corporate social responsibility. Jobs believed that making the best products and increasing Apple's market value was sufficient for social responsibility, thus he was not enthusiastic about philanthropy. Cook, however, had a different view, believing that as a leader in business and technology, Apple should actively engage in and contribute to philanthropy. Thus, a few months after taking over, Cook announced an employee donation matching program at an internal meeting, matching up to $10,000 per employee annually, later increasing the match ratio to 2-to-1. If employees volunteered, Apple would donate based on their volunteer hours multiplied by their wages. Apple also made significant donations to medical institutions, charities, and AIDS prevention projects. Cook's most significant change in this area was initiating a grand plan to improve supplier employee welfare. When a TV program revealed the working conditions of supplier factory workers, Cook acted immediately, hiring the Fair Labor Association to audit supplier factories and personally visiting factories to communicate with workers. He then urged suppliers to improve working conditions, increase wages, and focus on worker health and welfare, using Apple's commercial influence to guide and restrict suppliers. These efforts, though not directly profitable, had long-term benefits for improving Apple's corporate image. For Cook, just newly in charge, they helped him unite the company with new ideals, subtly imprinting his mark on Apple while inheriting Jobs' legacy. Part 3. So, how did Cook step out of Jobs' shadow and lead Apple to greater heights? By the end of 2012, Cook was fully recognized and named one of the 100 most influential leaders in the world by Time magazine. Apple's stock also hit a new high, surpassing Microsoft as the highest valued company ever. Now, let's move to the third part, examining how Cook stepped out of Jobs' shadow and led Apple to new heights. After successfully navigating the transition period, Cook continued leveraging his strengths in supply chain and operations to reduce costs for Apple. Additionally, Cook distinguished Apple from Jobs' era in three areas: product, market, and values, injecting new vitality into the company's development. Firstly, product innovation. Initially, the external skepticism about Cook was due to perceived lack of innovation compared to Jobs. After succeeding with products like the iPhone 5, some still believed he was merely capitalizing on Jobs' legacy, speculating that Jobs had left enough product ideas for years. Cook's response was to continue leveraging Johnny Ive's creative team and integrating the latest technology to continually innovate products, such as the first fingerprint recognition iPhone 5S and the large-screen iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus, which repeatedly broke sales records. Cook also broke Apple's traditional disregard for enterprise customers by partnering with IBM to develop specialized software for various professional fields and corporate markets. People accustomed to using iPhones and iPads for entertainment could now use them for professional work, expanding Apple's market space. Cook's contributions extended further with the 2014 launch of Apple Watch. Despite Jobs' dislike for wearing watches, this entirely new product category led by Cook initially received a lukewarm response. However, it soon caught the wave of health and fitness trends and incorporated features like smart payments, leading to steadily increasing sales, driving the entire wearable devices industry with cumulative sales exceeding 40 million units and over 50% quarterly growth. Beyond new products, Cook opened new markets, notably China. For a global company leader, focusing on and expanding into China might seem obvious, but few acted as swiftly and effectively as Cook. When Cook took over, China's market share in Apple's total revenue was only 2%. After becoming CEO, he prioritized China, quickly negotiating with Chinese government officials and telecom operators, addressing channels like contract phones and retail stores, and sincerely apologizing for after-sales service issues to improve the company's image. Within 2 years, China's market revenue increased over 600%, with the revenue share rising from 2% to 12%. Today, it exceeds 20%, making China a powerful driver of Apple's continued growth. Thus, through new products and markets, Cook led Apple to surpass the commercial success of the Jobs era. In August 2018, Apple's market value surpassed $1 trillion, making it the first company in history to reach this milestone. Coupled with strong supply chain management and operations and aggressive pricing tactics with suppliers and contractors, Cook ensured Apple's profitability, such as capturing 80% of the smartphone market's profits. Cook's contributions extended beyond products and markets, bringing new values to Apple. Let's explore these new values one by one. Firstly, environmental sustainability. Jobs was indifferent to environmental issues, and early Apple was often criticized by environmental groups. Cook, however, emphasized sustainability, purchasing renewable energy for operations, urging suppliers to focus on environmental protection, and seeking safe, recyclable manufacturing materials. Today, Apple is a green enterprise model, with Cook aiming for a 100% renewable and recyclable supply chain. Secondly, privacy. Under Jobs, Apple didn't stand out in this regard. Cook's Apple, however, strengthened user privacy protection with each software and hardware update. In 2016, Cook even defied the FBI to protect privacy principles, refusing to unlock a user's phone for a terrorism investigation. Cook argued that government overreach was dangerous. After prolonged debates, public opinion sided with Cook, and the FBI withdrew its request. Additionally, Cook emphasized diversity and inclusion, user convenience for people with disabilities, integrating these values into Apple's management and product design. He also continued efforts in charity and improving supplier working conditions. In 2017, Cook summarized Apple's 6 core values in a financial report: accessibility, education, environment, inclusion and diversity, privacy and security, and supplier social responsibility. What do you think of when you think of Apple today? Bold innovation, ease of use, and exceptional design might still be Jobs' legacy. But if you think of green, privacy, and social responsibility, much of that credit goes to Cook. Cook believes Apple, as a leading enterprise, should exemplify correct values. Charitable acts, environmental efforts, and social responsibility advocacy are not temporary measures but essential responsibilities. Through these values, Cook subtly imprinted his mark on Apple, giving it new meaning post-Jobs. Now, let's recap the book's main points. Firstly, Cook was not chosen by Jobs by chance. His expertise in supply chain and operations helped rebuild Apple's production and operations, aiding Jobs in Apple's revival, earning Jobs recognition and grooming. Secondly, after taking over, Cook managed internal adjustments and leveraged his strengths to navigate the crisis. Thirdly, in the post-Jobs era, Cook's breakthroughs in products, markets, and values led Apple to new success, leaving his mark on the company. Finally, Cook is an excellent CEO, and his performance post-succession has been well recognized. Some even believe he is better suited as CEO than Jobs, who, even while alive, was more like a chief product officer. However, Cook is not without flaws. Recent criticism includes lack of innovation, especially in killer new products, with Apple's updates becoming mere hardware enhancements. Also, strategic confusion, as seen in Apple's wavering self-driving car ambitions. Moreover, Apple's proclaimed social responsibility contrasts with its aggressive supplier pricing, causing social issues. These criticisms, combined with changing international economic and trade environments, have impacted Apple's stock and growth, presenting new challenges for Cook. That's the essence of this book. The original book link is attached at the end for further reading. You can also click the share button below the video to share this book with your friends. Congratulations, you've just finished another book.